Freedom of speech is, of course, a very important commodity in this world. It is rare, but we have it here in the United States. As well, the protection of our right to own our own belongings is also inherent to being an American since the beginning of this nation. And music is enjoyed by pretty much everyone here in the United States. I put this presentation together primarily because freedom of speech is at risk in the United States through the music industry. Some things have taken place that the general American population should be aware of. There have been some things that have happened that the American population should be able to find out about accurately. As well, there are people in the American music industry today who should be informed. I started working in the music industry back in 2019, and I was inspired by a particular songwriter who scored a number of hit songs and performed at the original 1969 Woodstock Music Festival and performed at the largest performance venues all around the world, the Sydney Opera House, Carnegie Hall, the Royal Albert Hall, everywhere. She was incredibly appreciated for her skilled vocals, as well as her incredible melodies, her genius performances on a guitar, and her ability to captivate thousands of people in a show. In fact, when she performed at Carnegie Hall and the Royal Albert Hall and Woodstock, it was just her on the stage, her and her guitar and the songs that she had written herself. And in the world of business, she was working only with her husband, who was her music producer, her manager, and who they had a almost religious experience together in music. This is the United States copyright law, and this is a collection of documents that I compiled on the behalf of an artist who was done very wrong in the world of business concerning music. And very unfortunately, this series of wrongdoings started all the way back in the 70s. This artist reached out to me because she could find no one who would listen to her anymore. I embarked on a quest to understand what had happened to her in terms of copyright abuse. Why did I do this? Mainly because no one else was listening to her problem any longer. She had exhausted her resources in terms of free legal advice, and many family members and friends had willingly gone to bat for her, but they could not make head nor tails of the information they received from major corporations who were controlling the use of her recordings. She was the originator of the songs, the melodies. She performed the songs herself, and her husband and her together paid for her shows and paid for her recordings. So it should have been a no-brainer as to her ownership of her music. And yet something strange was going on. This story bears repeating because it is something we can all learn from in the world of freedom of speech, as well as the world of owning our belongings as artists. So without further ado, here is my presentation. And this art piece is one that you picked out yourself.
Yes, this is Sulamith Wolfing, a German fantasy artist, was a big influence on what I would call my persona. You know, I didn't know exactly what to wear. You know, at the beginning, I just wore like long peasant dresses and, you know, whatever suited me at the time. And the girl who worked at the record label and PR said, you know, we have to work on your look. I thought, what's that? You know,
right.
This was way before anybody ever talked about branding or marketing or anything. So I thought, my look. She said, yeah, well, what would you, if you could wear anything you want, what would you fantasize yourself wearing or how would you wear your hair? And I thought, Sulamith Wolfing.
Wow.
I would dress like this. No, I would definitely be either the knight in the shining armor or in Celtic finery, but then she has other things. Her details are so beautiful.
They're amazing.
And
they're amazing.
It's all.
Hi, I'm Corinne. I started a music company based on human rights in the music industry. I did this because of what I personally observed happen in the life of a platinum recording artist and Emmy-winning songwriter, Melanie, who between 1968 and 2024 wrote, recorded, and released 200 or 300 songs on her own music labels. So with Melanie, I felt like I had found a worthy champion. The United Nations issued 30 human rights. One of them deals with art. It's called Article 27, or the 27th human right. It says that 1, everyone has the right to participate in the cultural life of the community, to enjoy the arts, and to share in scientific advancement and its benefits. 2, everyone has the right to the protection of the moral and material interests resulting from any scientific, literary, or artistic production of which he is the author. Despite this human right officially held in place by the United States since 1948, in music today, trouble still exists. National headlines have almost become too commonplace. The actual trouble centers around ownership of the artist's musical artistic creations. These creations are often the closest thing to the heart of these artists. On the other end, the companies who have put money in are deeply concerned about the control of this money-making asset, and they normally have the power and money to control both media as well as government lobbyists. The struggle for the control of the artistic commodities in music has gone on and on, decade after decade. In music, we can see that there are 2 main commodities. The first is the written song and its accompanying music, which is often written out in music sheets. The U.S. Copyright Office calls this commodity a musical work. The second commodity is the performance of the music. When it is recorded, it is something that can next be sold in CDs, as digital files, on vinyl, etc., etc. The United States Copyright Office calls this other commodity a sound recording. It isn't complicated to understand that there is a written song as one valuable commodity, and there is a recorded performance of a song that is a separate valuable commodity. A songwriter uses a pen and paper or a computer to write lyrics. He or she can create the heart of the music on a piano or a guitar in the room. A sound recording can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars into the millions, especially when one is hiring the best artists in the world. This makes the recordings incredibly important to take care of correctly. In the United States music industry, the copyrights of both the musical work and the sound recording can be sold by the creators. Yet, per the 27th human right, the creator can never be completely separated from either of these creative assets. So this right to remain connected to one's artistic products has never been fully won before in the United States for artists. Copyrights of both the musical work as well as the sound recording are often disputed, bought, and sold. Another risk in copyright protection for all artists in music is changing terms and the use of various descriptions of these musical products. This is done primarily by people trying to explain the music industry, attorneys, industry executives, and leadership inside some of music's biggest companies. In 2024, owning the copyright for a song, its written lyrics, and its written out music on sheets might be called publishing, but back in the time that Melanie got started in her music career, it was referred to as a writer's share. In 2024, the right to use any sound recording might be called performance rights, but back decades earlier, people talked about artist rights, and that generally referred to performance rights, or artists wanting to protect their rights would refer to someone who had been in some contract where they were singing music that was given to them and they wanted to protect their human right as a performer. So we find these terms that are used by artists speaking to their family members or talking to their attorney or over lunch meetings or talking in studios. They might be jumbled or they might just be too vague as to exactly what they are referring to. But the actual term musical work and a sound recording are the terms that are used by the United States Copyright Office.
Look what they've done to my song, Ma. Woo!
The first time I heard about Melanie, I was working in Nashville, Tennessee for the first time in my life. And Melanie and I have mutual acquaintances from Los Angeles. A couple of these actually reached out to me and asked me to bring a DVD that I had in my possession to Melanie. And that was how I met her. Now, I ended up meeting her son, Bo Jared Shakarik, first. Bo is a professional guitarist who accompanied Melanie on all of her performances. Together, and at times with Bo's two older sisters, Layla and Jordy, they did shows everywhere, on stages around the globe. And then when Bo's father, Peter Shakarik, passed away in 2010, Bo helped Melanie with all the things required to keep her career going. He recorded her new songs, he could do studio engineer work for her. He is a stunning vocalist as well as a multifaceted songwriter, as well as a skilled instrumentalist. He built himself a home music studio where he records music, composes songs, handles complex music arrangements for other artists, while still doing everything else daily for Melanie's works of art. So, the first time I ever met Melanie back in 2013, the first thing she said to me after our introduction, the very first thing she said was that she was having a very, very hard time. And she wasn't doing well physically. Her music had been taken from her, and it had happened so many times that by the time we were meeting for the first time, she said that there was forged paperwork on file with ASCAP, and that she was trying to understand how this paperwork was now being listened to by ASCAP instead of her. So as you can imagine, I'd never had anybody say anything like that to me before. It was very, very surprising to hear her say it, and she went on in detail about how it had happened. So she had my complete attention from the very beginning. So I didn't know what ASCAP meant, so I asked Melanie, and she explained that ASCAP was the most important organization in the music industry in the entire world, who everyone listens to when a deal needs to be made concerning one of these musical commodities. And she explained that everyone listens to ASCAP, but ASCAP wasn't listening to her. So she was going around in circles on this problem, and she also said that she had lost a number of her closest friends in the music industry because she was challenging ASCAP. And after she received paperwork that she hadn't seen before and she hadn't signed, she was then disputing the paperwork. And at that point, she said a lot of people went away and disappeared. And that was one of the first promises I guess I just volunteered and gave her, which was that I wasn't going to just go away and disappear. I was going to see it through to the very end, because I was inspired by her work and I was inspired by her dedication to me as a fan and to all these other artists and people that she was looking out for throughout her entire career. ASCAP is the American Society of Composers, Authors, and Publishers. It's a not-for-profit organization that licenses music to businesses and collects royalties for its members. ASCAP has a database that movie and television companies and pretty much everyone in the world goes to in order to determine which company to contact for the right to use music. You can imagine having a company as important as ASCAP, now telling Melanie's paying clients to see another company, well, it was just shattering for her. The biggest heartache was that Melanie had these two very serious medical conditions that she needed to address. And because she only brought her income in through live shows, I was on pins and needles, every day concerning Melanie's welfare. And she made me aware of different problems that she was dealing with, and how they affected her every movement and how it made every day a challenge. She had seen doctors. They had recommended surgery for her. She didn't have the money to pay for it. It was about 5 years of seeing this happen. She would go into the hospital and be there for months. This condition worsened. She was on tour in Australia, and she suffered a very dangerous fall where she broke bones in her hands and bones in her feet. But everything she has ever done in her career has been self-funded. So she was in Australia and she finished the tour in that condition. So this made pain just a part of her daily life for many, many years. Melanie struggled with walking. She had to ask for wheelchairs. She asked to be driven anywhere she could. And yet she had to continue live shows to make any real income at all. And again, Bo, her son, was staying with her and literally holding her up with his support whenever she walked or needed to get around anywhere. So it was really concerning for me personally to see this happening. In 2015, I put together a music concert with several artists at the Nashville East Pavilion. My event was held in support of human rights education on the International Day of Peace. Melanie donated her signature performance. She was the headliner. She told me that any performance that supported world peace was Melanie's most sincere calling. In fact, at the height of Melanie's fame, she donated an entire world tour to UNICEF. And also in 2015, Melanie invited me to hang out with her and Miley Cyrus at a mansion in the Hollywood Hills. Miley had arranged with Sony to perform Melanie's songs in support of Miley's not-for-profit organization, which Melanie loved. Melanie wanted to talk to Miley about the problem with ASCAP. I was there, and Miley was very friendly. She was attentive to Melanie's concerns. It was evident that Miley had a different view. Miley shared an entirely different set of circumstances in music. In 2019, I returned to Oregon, where I was raised. I was writing my first books with my personal aspiration to become a published author. Out of nowhere, a message came through from Melanie. She let me know that things had taken a dramatic turn for the worse. There was a person from around the time when Peter passed away who had gotten access to Melanie's dashboard with ASCAP. And he was no longer listening to Melanie. He was no longer following her requests. And yet he was able to interact directly with ASCAP. And she had never given him power of attorney. She had never sold him anything. And she wanted me to help her. So what ended up happening from that one phone call was that between 2019 and 2023, I made a number of trips to Tennessee. All of this to listen to her and to understand what was happening and help her put in writing her request to end abuse of her human rights in the music industry.
Why sleep, I heard, and I followed it today to the top of the hill where the wind songs play. Perfect. And I sing it like I heard it. Why I heard it, who knows why. Why sleep when we can watch the sun arise? When we can watch the sun